So circles and cycles. Circles and cycles. Conversations set in circles support pureness, listening, and turn-taking, often around an evocative, engaging, shared center. Cycles return to their beginnings, usually newly and sometimes repeating into spirals of further development or deepening. So include circles and cycles in conversations, meetings, communities, networks, organizations, and iterative processes that support pure reflection and inclusive action. So I was introduced to circle process on the Great Peace March across the United States in 1986. We had an indigenous guy on the march, a Native American, who introduced us 400 people to circle process, and we adapted it and used it. And we did it in a sort of sacred way with what was called a talking stick, an object that was passed around, and whoever held it spoke. And we were all supposed to listen, not interrupt. There's a potentially reflective quality to circle conversations. There were some people who found it limiting. The modern Western individual freedom thing gets interfered with by that. But well, the advantage of sacred circle is you're holding the group, you're holding the topic. Circles originated people sitting around a fire, and the fire kind of held the energy of the group and the thing that people were trying to do together. And you can do that with putting something in the middle or not putting something in the middle, but the sense that there's a shared thing you're doing. And there are prayer circles in evangelical churches. There's lots of circle conversation and a sense of peerness. There may be a facilitator, but there's nobody in charge, as opposed to everybody in rows facing a speaker in the front. It's a very different thing energetically and leadership wise. So this is the supporting pureness, listening, turn taking are built into the circle form. But even when it's not a formal circle conversation, we use phrases like circle of friends, inner circle, and that has the feeling of the intimacy, which is typical of circles. World Cafe is a process that is modeled on the fact that people are sitting around a table in cafes and they're having conversation. There's a built-in sense of when you come into a scene that is set up like a cafe, you normally do what people do in cafes, even if it's not really a cafe, and people talk and listen to each other, and there's a certain level of intimacy. It's another process, open space, that is usually people who in breakout groups sit in a circle, and they are talking about something that is all of interest to each of them in the breakout group. And another process called fishbowl, where people in a small circle sit within a larger circle, and the people in the larger circle are listening to the people in the smaller circle. There's many variations of that, but again, this circle mode, as opposed to sitting in rows, that's a main distinction here. And the circle mode fits with the spirit of inquiry and pureness that is part of the assumptions underlying the wise democracy frame of reference. There's interesting variations coming out, which is a practice called sociocracy, which is an organizational form, and it is an interesting blend of hierarchy and circles. At each level, there is a circle, and there at the higher level of management, there's a circle, but there's a representative of the higher level of management at the lower level circle and a representative of the lower circle at the higher circle. And so it's interlinked circles all the way up to the top. And there's also a current exploration of organizational theory called teal organizations. These are organizations that have few, if any, levels of management, and they're organized around teams, circles, they are often called, of groups of people who are autonomously making their decisions within the larger purpose of the whole organization. So there's many manifestations of that circle quality, and if you could make these into two separate patterns, but part of what happens in circle conversations, particularly spiritual or inquiry-based circle conversations, is iteration begins to happen. You have, as you go around the circle, you've heard what people have said, and the circle starts again, and you are speaking to things that were raised by what other people raised without having a back and forth conversation, but you're offering into the middle what you've heard from the middle. You're offering into the group what you've heard from the group. So the more times you go around in a sacred circle, the deeper the conversation will go. So that shifts us over into iteration, and the cycles. Cycles are in nature. I mean, we do recycling, the sense of all the materials that exist in nature are moving from one place to another and going around and coming back again. We are breathing oxygen and carbon and nitrogen that was breathed by every organism on the planet sometime in the past. The planet's been around for millions of years. There's hardly any new oxygen or hydrogen, being, produced or introduced into them. So it's all going around and around and around. That's essential to understand about nature. And feedback loops is one of our modern understandings. The great hoop, the great circle, these are indigenous understandings. The seasons are circular, days are circular. We talk about circadian rhythms, which have to do with the waking, acting, resting, sleeping cycle of a human life, the life cycle of being born and aging and dying and having children, and that's the cycles of life. I mean, cycles are built in, and there's a funny way our culture says, we don't want to just go around in circles, we need to get from A to B. It's like there's a linear assumption built into that it's better to go from A to B than to, think and behave in circular ways. And regrounding ourselves in circular and cyclic dynamics is fundamental to the generation of wisdom. And one of the impulse or input into a system can generate large effects. The underlying dynamic of that is iteration. Iteration has its own card, but I want to bring it up here also. The fact that in circular cyclic processes, small offerings can have magnified impact as they're processed by the circular dynamic, and to allow that to happen. And if it's done in a reflective way, not only it becomes a feedback loop, not only does the good things magnify, but the negative things. This is the quality of the conversation, the quality of the facilitation, the quality of the culture around it will cause good things to rise to the top and anti-life things to sink to the bottom. So all of this is deeply informative to how to move from power over linear control kinds of dynamics into participatory, sharing, co-creative dynamics. Fundamental is the circles and cycles pattern.